Hi guys, this is Decode. I welcome you to another video tutorial on creating an ASP.NET Core application with Angular 7. In the last video tutorial, we fixed the validation of a token expiry. So if the token is expired, then the user will be redirected to the login page. And the way we did that was by using the jwt_decode package. So now in this video tutorial, what we are going to do is start working on the Crud functionality for our products. And the Crud functionality includes the creating of a new product, updating of a new product, and deleting of a new product. So as we all know that only admin can create, update, and delete a product, whereas a customer can only view the product. So as of now, let's first go ahead and create the functionality or code the functionality for CRUD operations. And after we have finished coding the functionality for CRUD operations, we will go ahead and add the rules for the particular functionality based on the user roles. So what we are going to do is when somebody clicks on the following button, add product, they should be able to add a new product inside the product list, inside the database. And now when the button is clicked, we need to pop up a modal which will contain a form that will be used to add a new product. So let's do that. Also, what I want you guys to do is go back to your app settings.json file and change this expire time to 60 minutes because we had changed this to 1 minute when we were testing the token validation. And if you keep it 1 minute, then it's going to expire every 1 minute. Therefore, please make sure you change it and increase the time limit. So when we are working on the CRUD functionality, we don't want the page to redirect us to log in because the token is expired. So now let's go back to the application and then go to the product list.component.ts and start working on the CRUD functionality. So inside the product list.component.ts file, the first thing that we want to do is we want to create a bootstrap modal service or instantiate the bootstrap modal service. Why do we need to instantiate the bootstrap modal service? Because when we click the add product button, we need to load a modal pop-up. And to load a modal pop-up, we would need to have a modal service running up and running. So as soon as the constructor is set of this component, we want to instantiate the modal service. So let's go ahead and search for the modal service. So it's up and running. So we will create here private and we will call this modal service as modal service. If you have not watched the video for registration, how do we register new users in this project, I have clearly explained how we use bootstrap models. I recommend you to watch that because I'm not going to again explain in detail how we are going to use a model. So first thing that we want to do is instantiate the modal service, which is a type of BS modal service object. And here the BS modal service reference is added to the import statement and we are importing it from ngx bootstrap /modal. In case if you get an error here when you create the object, then please add the import manually because sometimes Visual Studio might not add it automatically. Now next thing that we want to do is we want to go to our HTML of this product list component dot HTML of the product list component, and here in the HTML, when this add product button is clicked, we need to fire off an event, which is the click event, and which will load the modal. So let's create the click event. And what are we going to call? We will call this method as on add product. You can name this method anything that you like. I'm going to call this as on add product because I'm adding a product. So now we have fired off this method, so we have to also make sure that in the product list component.ts we also create this method. So just below the constructor here, I will create the on add product method. So here, and now what we want to do is when the button is clicked, we want to load the bootstrap modal. And the way we load the bootstrap modal is using the modal ref object that we created of PS model. So without this object, we cannot use or load the model. So we have to create an object of modal ref. So using this modal ref object, we will assign and load the model. So modal ref is equal to our modal service object that we created. So modal service there. And now when you click dot, it will give you all the required methods that you can play around with the model. So what we want to do here, when the button is clicked, we want to show the model. So we will call the show method. And here inside the show method, we have to specify which model we want to load. So we want to load the template model, which is basically the add product model. So if you go back here, the add product model is called as template. That's the ID. Therefore, and the object that holds that template is called as model. So I am going to load that model, and that should be it. Now let's go back to our application and check if when we click the button, if the model loads. So let's click on this, and a model is not loading, which means there are some errors. Let's fix that. So in the console, I'm clicking that. I'm not getting any error. So let's go ahead and check what mistake I've done. So on add, my on add method was just here. So see, oh, okay, here I have not saved the HTML file. I have called the method here, but I have not saved it. So let's save it. Go back here. Now let's click on it, and the modal loads. So as you see, the modal is now loading, and the modal contains an form inside it. So we go to my template model for the add product. It contains a form. Now we have to fix these errors. So let's go ahead and fix all these errors. So the errors are caused because we have not yet initialized these properties inside the ngOnIt method. So whenever we are going to use these properties in the form control, we obviously have to make sure that all these properties that we have created, we initialize them as well using the form control class. So the first thing that we want to do is go ahead and initialize the add product properties. So before that, let's add a modal message. So let's call the modal message object, that property that we created, and we will say all fields are mandatory. That's the message. Next thing that we want to do is initialize our product properties. So now we want to make sure that when somebody is on the product page trying to add a product, they add a valid image URL. And to validate if the image URL is valid, we will use regular expression. So here we are going to first create an object, call it let validate image URL is equal to, is string and is equal to. Here we are going to use some regex. If you Google the regular expression to validate an image URL, you will find number of regular expression code, and the one I am going to use here is the following regular expression, which will make sure that when the link is added, it's an HTTPS link and not an HTTP link, and it's a PNG or JPEG image that is being used while adding the product. Next thing that we want to do is we want to create validators for all the properties that we have. So we have some validation here that we allow only max 150 characters for description. Product name will be only 50 characters, and the price cannot be negative. And if there is an invalid image URL, we will also make sure we validate using the regex. So now we have to instantiate those properties here for validators using form control. So let's do that. So to add the product, we will have to instantiate initialize four properties: name, price, description, and image URL. And to initialize these properties, we will initialize them as new form control objects. So let's do that. So name property is equal to new form control. And inside this form control constructor, we will add the validators. So validators dot required, because this property is required, and the max length, call the max length method, and 50 characters are needed for a product name. Now let's add the remaining validators, and also we would have to add the validators because we have multiple validators. We would have to add them inside an array. So let's add an array. That should get rid of this error now. Now let's go ahead and create the remaining properties for price, description, and image URL. So let's just the price, this to description, and this to image URL. For all of these properties, we will use the validators dot required except the image URL. I'm going to change this to validators dot pattern because we have to match a regex pattern, and the pattern comes from the object that we created here, which is validate image. So validate image URL, and we will validate the image URL based on this object here, which is having a regex value. So it will match the pattern. If the pattern does not match, it's going to give an error. Now for the price, as we all know that the price cannot be negative, so we would have to remove this max length validator and change this to validators dot minimum, and the minimum value has to be 0, and if it's 0 it cannot be -1, so negative values will not be accepted. And then validators dot max, and for max we will have to set a maximum price for our products. So I'll put this as 10,000. You can add your own figure over here. For the description, we would allow only 150 characters, so change this to 150. Now we can save this. Now we have initialized our required properties. We don't have to initialize the ID property because when we add a product, the ID will be generated automatically by the database. Now we need to make sure that we using the form, all these form controls, we group them with form builder. So with the help of form builder, we will group all these form control properties. So let's do that. So we have to first call the form insert form, and the insert form is basically the ID of the form which holds all these properties. So form group is called as insert form for add product. So for all the properties that we are going to receive from that form, we are going to group them using form builder. And form builder, we have to now instantiate it inside the constructor. So let's go ahead and also instantiate form builder. So private form builder is a form builder object, and if you go up, the references for form control, form group, form builder, and validators have been added from Angular Forms automatically. In case if it's not, then you can add it manually. Now we have instantiated the form builder object, and we will initialize it in the ngOnIt method. So what we are going to do using the form builder object that we created, we will call the group method, and we will group all the form properties from the insert form. The way we will initialize it is inside the curly braces, we will add the properties as key value. So for the price, we will set the value as price object that we created. So price, the price property that we have here. So we will set the value of price to this dot price. So we have to also make sure we add the remaining properties inside here. So I'm just going to quickly add them here to save time. So what we are doing is we are setting the values from the form objects that we have received. So for name, we will set the value for the name value that we receive from the form. For the price, we'll set the value for the price value, and so on for all other properties. For out of stock, we will set the property as true. So initially, we will set the property out of stock to true. So now we will save this, and let's go back to our browser and check what errors we are getting so we can fix that. So now when we are in the browser and when I click add new product, I'm not getting any errors because the missing properties are available and we have initialized them and their values. So if you notice, all the errors have been disappeared. So if I click the form again, all the values have disappeared, all the errors have disappeared. So in the next video tutorial, we need to make sure that we add this newly created properties or initialized properties inside the HTML form that we have created here, the bootstrap form. So we have to make sure we add the validations over here, the conditions for validation, and we will do that in the next video tutorial.